Hey everyone and welcome. So if you've been in the crypto space for more than 5 minutes, you've definitely heard Bitcoin called digital gold. It makes sense. But it always makes you wonder, what about silver? Today we are going to dive deep into the really fascinating and, let's be honest, kind of weird world of silver-backed crypto to figure out what is the real digital silver.
So let's just get right into it. When you hear people tossing around that term digital silver, what are they actually talking about?
Well, surprise. Most of the time, they're just talking about Litecoin. Yeah, one of the oldest cryptos out there. It pretty much got that nickname just because Bitcoin was called digital gold, and this was the next best thing. It's just an analogy. But, and this is the most important part.
No way, not at all. Litecoin has absolutely zilch connection to actual silver bars sitting in a vault somewhere. And that brings us to the real question we're tackling today. Are there any cryptos out there that are genuinely backed by real physical silver? Well, the answer is yes, but it gets complicated.
Okay, so how on earth do you take a shiny physical piece of metal and turn it into a digital token that lives on a blockchain? Well, as it turns out, there are really two main ways to do it. Two very different paths to connect that old world asset with this new world tech.
First, we got to understand the basic tech here. These silver tokens are really just a type of stablecoin. Now, you've probably heard of stablecoins that are pegged to the US dollar, right? Like USDT or USDC. The idea here is exactly the same, but instead of pegging the token's value to a dollar, you're pegging it to the value of a precious metal, in this case, silver.
And this is where it splits into two totally different approaches. On one side, you have the physically backed tokens. The best way to think about these is like a digital receipt. For every single token out there, there's a real corresponding chunk of silver locked away in a vault. And in theory, you should be able to trade your token back in for that physical metal. Then you've got the other side, synthetics. These don't represent real silver at all. Instead, they just use clever code and data feeds called oracles to simply track the price of silver. It's not about ownership, it's more like making a bet on where the price is going to go.
So now that we get how it's done, let's meet some of the actual players in this game. And listen, this is a tiny corner of the crypto world, but there are a few projects that are definitely worth knowing about. Let's do a real quick tour of the big three.
And this table really lays it all out perfectly. First, you've got Kinesis Silver, or COG. See, it's physically backed. Each token is supposed to represent 1 whole ounce of silver, and it is by far the biggest player in this little niche. Then there's TSIG, or TXAG. Also physical, but each token is a smaller amount, just 1 gram, and it runs on popular blockchains you've actually heard of, like Ethereum and Polygon. And finally, you see Synthetics, SXAG, and look at that backing type, synthetic. This is our price tracking token. It's a pure derivative made for traders, not for people who actually want to own silver.
So just how big is this market really? Let's look at the leader, Kinesis Silver. Its market cap is over $81 million. Now, that sounds like a pretty big number, right? I mean, it shows that there are real people putting real money into this idea. But let's put that number into perspective. A market cap of $81 million makes KAG the 424th largest cryptocurrency. That context is everything. We are not talking about the next big thing here. We are deep in a very specific, very small corner of the crypto universe. Okay, we know what they are. We know who's making them. But is any of this actually a good idea? Is it worth it? Let's weigh the good against the bad.
You know, on the plus side, there are some pretty clear advantages. Since its value is tied to a real-world thing, it has much more transparent purchasing power than a regular crypto. And let's be real, it's a whole lot easier to send someone a fraction of a digital token than it is to saw off a piece of a silver bar. And for crypto traders, it could be a pretty useful hedge, a stable place to run to when the rest of the market is going completely crazy.
However, and this is a big however, the downsides are pretty major. That small market cap we talked about, that means very low liquidity, which, ironically, can lead to huge price swings, the exact opposite of what you want. These things also exist in a sort of Wild West, outside of traditional investor protections. And, of course, you still have all the classic crypto risks, like losing your private keys and your money is just gone. But out of all these, one risk stands head and shoulders above the rest.
And that is counterparty risk. This is the big one. With the physically backed tokens, you are putting 100% of your faith in the company that's holding the actual silver. You have to trust that they really have it, you have to trust that their audits are legit, and you have to trust that they'll give you the silver if you ever ask for it. It's a huge leap of faith, and it kind of goes against that whole don't trust, verify idea that crypto was built on.
All right, we've covered the what, the who, and the why. So let's pull it all together.
What is the final takeaway from all this?
When you really boil it down, these silverback tokens are a super interesting experiment. They mix one of the oldest kinds of money on the planet with some of the newest technology. But right now, that's exactly what they are, an experiment. It is a tiny, super high-risk market that is completely dominated by that massive issue of trusting someone else to hold your stuff. It's a cool idea for sure, but it is a long, long way from being a safe or mainstream investment.
And that kind of leaves us with the big final question here. Is this the start of a revolution in how we own and trade precious metals? Is this going to make them accessible to everybody? Or is this whole thing just going to stay a weird little experiment for a handful of crypto fans? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for tuning in.